So with that being said, it is 9:45, and I would like to welcome everyone to session number 1 of ALP's Development Day. We are starting off today with, yes, we're open. Last Development Day, we focused on what to do while we're closed. This Development Day, we're focusing on reopening. Some states are fully open, some states are partially open, and even within the fully open states, there are jurisdictions that are still partially open. So it is a very big mix match. And we brought along some innkeepers for this presentation. And we want to get the feedback of what is going on out there with everybody else and how they're handling this. Today's session is going to be moderated by Nathan Mayfield. Nathan is the Vice President of ResNexus. He has over 18 years of marketing experience and is, like I said, he's the current Vice President of ResNexus Reservation Systems. Travis Orton, also with ResNexus, will be the room host of the room. So if there's any specific needs, Travis will be monitoring the chat rooms. We encourage you to use the chat rooms to ask questions, and if they are pertinent and able to be answered along the way, we will. Otherwise, all the chat rooms will be all the chat questions will be answered at the end of the session. Joining us today so far is Shawnee and Willie. Shawnee Willie Gruber of 1900 Inn on Montford in Asheville, North Carolina. We have 2 other presenters that will be joining us hopefully momentarily. One is Cheryl Grantham. She is from the Casa Grandview in West Palm Beach, Florida. And I did speak with Cheryl this morning, so she should be along soon. And the other is Marty Etzel. Marty and his wife own the Flag House Inn in Annapolis, Maryland. So at this point, I'm going to put myself on mute and pass it over to Nathan. Nathan?
Hey, thank you so much, Eric. Appreciate it and appreciate the introductions. So because time is short and we have a lot of discussion today, I wanted to jump right in, but if there is some questions that you guys have, feel free to go ahead and put it in the chat, and Travis and I will, if we have time, or we'll moderate and we'll ask a more follow-up question on it. And then the process of today's format will be that I will basically go down to Shawnee, Cheryl, and then Marty, and in that order. And hopefully Cheryl and Marty will be able to join us soon. But to kick it off, I wanted to ask the question, and this is for you, Shawnee. What is the current state of your business, and what are you doing to keep hospitality in your business or in the hospitality business?
So we're in Asheville, part of Macomb County. We're currently in phase 2. I think we've been there for 5 weeks, and actually it was kind of segregated. So the first 4 weeks we had to have a day before and a day after in our room reservations empty, and then this past week that switched and we were able to remove those blocks. So and the larger hotels are now able to be 100% occupied. We were always able to be 100% occupied, except for those room blocks. Masks are required all over town and in any public setting. So that's where we're at.
Okay.
Oh, and the hospitality part.
Yes, and how about the hospitality part? So how have, what have you adjusted, or how have you adjusted to the coronavirus, and how have you kept that hospitality in there?
Well, the hardest part is the just trying to make people feel welcome with a mask on. Our signage, we tried to make sure it looked friendly, but it felt responsible. We have a digital guide, and I'll probably say that a few times throughout the presentation today, but that has become so handy. The fact that we send it out before the guests arrive, they're able to check things out, and then at each point during the stay they can do that. But making sure the guest feels welcome, we still concierge them in. We're all masked up, so there's just feeling part of they are getting away. They are having a little bit of a break because people do want to get away right now.
Yeah, one of the interesting things that there's some recent research out from Airbnb that I've noticed. One of the very interesting things is that you have big city refugeeism happening, and you have, and then you also have, and so what happens is that people where COVID-19 is higher, what Airbnb's research shows is that they leave the big city and they're looking for a longer, they look for a longer stay. And so that's one interesting thing that's a trend that's happening. I don't know how that will relate with, again, hot spots flaring up again. I hope that other areas won't, as it shut down, maybe that might happen. But that has been really, really interesting that the research with Airbnb also does show that people really want to get out of their normal house. And so they are willing to travel local to experience that change of venue. I know here at Even Res Nexus with our employees, we used to offer a local stay in Provo, which is only like 20 minutes away, but it's away. You know, I was talking to my wife yesterday and she's like, I'm ready, I'm out, I'm ready to be done, you know? And I'm like, I get it. She's like, I feel like I'm living Groundhog Day. I'm like, I understand. And you know, that kind of thing. I'm going to check for, because of technical, if you're a little bit late to coming in because of technical difficulties, I haven't seen Cheryl or our other host, Marty. I'll check for them, but if they are here, go ahead and speak.
And while that happens, can I ask just a really quick question? Shawnee, we had a question about your digital guide. Great idea. How early do you send out your digital guide for your guests?
That goes out with the confirmation, so they get it right away, and then again with their 2-week reminder, and then we do a call the Sunday night before our weekly stays, and then we remind them verbally again that there's a digital guide, and because we removed all of our room books and all of the which I was so thankful for. And then we took out all the magazines and that kind of thing, because that's an extra touch point that shouldn't be there. But the digital guide, I had signed up for that in February at the PI conference. So, I was so thankful we did it, that I spent the time to do it, and then all of a sudden it became incredibly important. But the nice thing about it is, as all of these changes, you know, what phase you're in, what restaurants are open, you can immediately update your guide, and it's not printing on it all the time. And your guest has it wherever they go.
That's
so
great.
Reducing clutter and sending it out, and those are, it's the link to it is in your automated emails that go out, and you've set those for on confirmation 2 weeks before, and then you manually call them the Sunday before.
Yeah.
Welcome, Willie.
I'm in the background here, so we don't want to confuse everybody. But the other advantage with it is you can update it, and it doesn't have to be re-updated by the user. The information is as current as possible.
Great. So I was going to ask you guys the next question then, which is, how do you make sure that you communicate cleanliness and safety, and how important do you feel that is for the guest?
Well, it's incredibly important. It always was. When you come to stay at a place, the fortunate thing for us, we're an 8-room inn, so quality was always over quantity anyhow. But we reinforce it every step of the way. That you know, we mentioned it to the guests, the steps that we're taking. We do have some signage around. We have hand sanitizers spaced all over the common area. We wipe down I think that was our biggest change too, is wiping down the common areas 3 to 4 times a day. So that's like doorknobs and banisters and the one shared bathroom that we do have for our guests, and just keeping those things wiped down all the time. But we have them available for the guests at any point if they feel uncomfortable about something.
So, and then what was important as well is communicate that. So on our website, on our blog, updated what we were doing with regards to that. We're part of select registries, so we followed the protocols that they had for Select Safe, communicated that on our website as well, and then updated any of the OTAs that you work with, like TripAdvisor and vice versa, and so forth, so that you can communicate and people know what you're doing.
And you mentioned that you removed some stuff. Was that a big part of it? Did you remove a lot of things or just a little bit?
We really were clutter free already, but it was things like travel magazines, the local guides that they would drop off here all the time. So we just removed all of that. And so it was really important that the digital guide had everything in it. So our digital guide goes from everything about their room to where you can find the best burger in town, to how to realtors if you want to move to Asheville. So it just runs the gamut now.
Okay, awesome. We talked before. We did have a question that says, was there a template that you used for your digital guide, or did you just make it up for yourself?
So we did purchase it through, and I know we're not supposed to do advertising, but I know that there are other providers. We went with TouchStay, and it's a set fee each year, and we can make all the changes we want. I will say they've been very responsive, and everything's been really good. It was really pretty easy to do. It just took a bit of time. But now that I put that time in, I don't have to. It's so much better than the room books. So much better. I feel a lot better about it.
Okay. One of the things, and you're fine, Shawnee. What you did just there is fine. I talked with Eric earlier, and he's like, we want to give people resources, just as long as it's not, hey, showcasing every little aspect.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So you're good. You're fine. I want people to know, whether it's ResNexus or any other resource, or Acorn or anything else, just let them know where you got your information. So and it says, I have something from Peter just on chat that says that TouchStay is now available at no extra charge if you are a Select Registry member. So
yeah,
that is
we signed up before it was, but yeah, that was pretty, I thought that was really nice that they made that available.
And then another question I had was, is it possible, and then I'll move on, is it possible to do some version of a digital guide via Google Docs? Or does...
Probably.
Yeah.
Anything's possible nowadays if you're well versed, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Why couldn't you? Yeah, why not?
I'm guessing the benefit of what you use is the digital guide is basically just a link that you click onto, correct?
Correct.
So to answer that question, you could do it with Google Docs, but what I've found is if people don't have Google Docs, depending on if they don't have a Google account, sometimes you encounter problems with that. So that can be problematic, but you would just want to test it with someone who doesn't have my recommendation would be test that with somebody who doesn't have the Google Suite or use Gmail, and see if they're able to view it. All right, so I did want to showcase, this is one thing that was really interesting. When we had originally, when Marty, Willie, and Shawnee and Cheryl all got together, they just said, no, it's really important, although you do communicate safety, it's important not to do it in a sterile fashion. I thought this was a good visual example that kind of shared that Cheryl put in, which basically, I love the please keep your distance, at least when dolphin apart. Instead of always harping on 6 feet or something else, if you can do it in a fun and memorable way, that helps reinforce maybe the COVID-19 guidelines you have in your state. But it doesn't mean you have to be really sterile and put 300 pages on your front door saying what you're doing. I mean, depending on the guest, they were like, "Where's the 300-page document?" You get all kinds of gamuts, and then you'll have people that don't tell me to wear a mask, right? So it just depends. So, but I wanted to share that. So the next question was, so how do you, Willie and Shawnee, how do you guys handle check-in and check-out? How has that changed since the coronavirus?
Why don't you take that one?
So what we've done with our check-in and check-out is we had a sheet with expectations and what we're doing here at our property, so that everybody understands what the protocols are and what's going on within town as well. That way they have it there. It's also on our digital guidebook. And then obviously when they pull up in the parking lot, we social distance and have masks on as well. And then show them any particulars within the room so we don't have additional questions later if they need them. And provide masks, hand sanitizer, everything that they might need to feel comfortable and safe. And we lay out all the protocols on the sheets. And that's pretty much it. Obviously, there's no high fives or hugs anymore, but that's what we're doing. And then with our exit, we go ahead and take care of any costs that were incurred and close out their bill and then email it to them. So, and then that's it. So usually it works out pretty well that way.
Okay. On that sheet, I have a question on how long is it, and is there a way that you could share that sheet so other people could see what a good example looks like?
Absolutely. Right now?
But,
Okay.
We can do it after, or if you have it in the chat, if you have the link in the chat, you can just put it in the chat link as we're going through. We can do that after on that, but that's great. Is there anything else that we haven't covered in regards to check-in or check-out, or how have the guests responded?
We've tried to keep it simple because most people don't want to read 500 pages. They're going to want to look at it. So we got it on one page, kind of the key points. And then that way, if people had additional questions, they could ask that afterwards. And then we just try to keep it simple and very common sense for folks. So.
Okay. I do have Marty, so I'm going to go ahead and unmute Marty if you're there. So we're on the question of how do you handle check-in and check-out?
Yeah, so can you hear me okay?
Absolutely, yeah.
First of all, I really apologize for being late. I thought it was 11 in my head, and it's been really hectic here in Annapolis because it's the plebes, the freshmen coming to the Naval Academy are reporting. We're directly across the street from them, and we got parents coming and going and phone calls. I actually think I was taking a reservation too that threw me off my game. Anyway, handling check-ins and check-outs. So check-ins, we do it kind of in a couple phases. In our confirmation, we talk about the safety procedures that we have. The reminder we send 3 days ahead out of our property management system has a reminder about bringing their own masks and water bottles, hand sanitizer, wipes, etc. When the day before people arrive, we send a text. We started using a texting system, although for a while I was just mainly cutting and pasting from a Google Doc with some pre-arrival information. And then we do the actual check-in on the porch. We don't do a contactless or a self-check-in. We feel that that's too impersonal for a small, high-touch business like us. But we do the briefing on the porch so they can take the mask off. We can take the mask off. We have kind of a checklist of things to cover. What seating would they like, because we now moved to 2 seatings for breakfast. We remind them to wear a mask inside the house and so on. So we're a little more high touch, but the guests super appreciate it. Checkout's not really a whole lot different in terms of that. We give them the keys. We sanitize the keys and put a little plastic Ziploc bag and say, here's your keys. We'll show you how to use it. So we right from the beginning, we're trying to give them a lot of assurance that we've thought through what we've done. And it really helps to put them at ease because we're getting great comments back. And we get a lot of people now calling the book saying, I was reading the comments of your guests, and it sounds like you guys are really on top of it. So we've done a lot of things.
Great. I did have a question from the attendees that say, we'll start with Shawnee and Willie, and then Marty, if you'll weigh in too, or as long as you're not talking over each other, you can both weigh in. But what do you the question is, what do you think about, have you guys considered doing any self check-in process via like a pass pro to the room or an automated door lock or anything like that? This is someone who's considering maybe starting their property, hasn't opened yet, and implementing that. What are your thoughts on that? And how would the guests react?
Marty,
Go ahead, Shawnee.
go first.
or Marty?
I'm going to type my answer in. You guys go ahead. I'm going to type my answer into help.
Okay.
I would say that for us, self check-in isn't really practical, and I would look at that on a property by property basis. But in our case, we own a circa 1900 home, and then there's a carriage house. And if I arrived late trying to figure out where a room was in an older home with my wheel bag, I probably would not appreciate the passcode thing. And then, you know, and there isn't that, you know, you're fumbling around trying to figure out where to park and that kind of thing. So even for late check-ins, before there was COVID, we would always, if they were coming in late on a flight, we would meet them in the parking lot, have them call us like 10 minutes before they got here. We live on premises, and we would meet them in the parking lot and get them concierged in. And that really worked well for us. But other properties, you know, that's, you've got to rock what you have.
Yeah, Marty, I saw that you replied. Did you want to verbally reply or anything, or are you good?
No, that's it. I mean, you can see the comments. No, it's okay.
One of the things is, like Shani said, I would recommend, it depends, like if you have more of a whole unit with kitchen, like individual units, maybe like if Cheryl was on here, it would be interesting to see what she would say. I won't put words in her mouth, but as Nexus with the properties that we've seen, it just depends on the property. If they're more like, hey, they're getting the whole unit and it's more vacation rental style, then absolutely that would be a great solution. All right, so I'll go on to the next question, which is, and then I have another person from Annalena just to say that they have a keypad lock on the front door. They've been using it for 14 years, and they use it for late chickens, and now they just switched to everyone. So again, just trial and error. I don't think there's a right or wrong on that one. So starting with Shani and Willie, how are you guys now handling breakfast?
Well, we were really fortunate that when COVID happened, it happened when it did. We do porch breakfast for the main inn guests. And so we have two tops on, our home was built for a doctor here in Nashville. And so it's a breathing porch. It was thought to cure tuberculosis at one time, and it's a huge porch, so they can all be socially distant. So Willie does the serving, and he's all masked up, and the couples come down. It's beautiful out there. And then we have 4 rooms that we bring out with the tray, and it's the same breakfast. We just put it on the tray and we run it out there. We're all masked up for that, and we were real fortunate. So what we have had to do is look ahead to, because this isn't going to be over anytime soon, is what we're going to do in the fall when they can't eat breakfast outside anymore. So we've had a carpenter come in, and he's going to make us some custom arts and crafts style tables for a couple of our other common areas, so that we can seat the people individually and we have so much common space, just use it a little more wisely.
So you don't have to stagger anybody or anything. You're able to.
Nope, we have enough common space that we just needed a couple more tables.
Okay. Marty, how about you?
Yeah, we made a lot of changes. We had an indoor dining room that had 2 tables that could seat up to 6 at each table. Our maximum year regular capacity is 11 people. So it used to be, come on down anytime between 8:30 and 9:30. We got a seat for you at the table. So now we do 2 seatings. We do 8, 15, and 9. We're only doing 1 group at a table, whether it's 1, 2, or 3 people, or sometimes it's more. If you have 2 or 3 couples traveling together, we'll get them all at the same table. So this is part of the pre-arrival text too, is which seating would you prefer? So we can kind of anticipate it. If everybody wanted early or late, we do have some options for that, because we have a sitting room where we could set up some folding tables. And now we're also doing on the porch. We do have a porch, but we get 2 of the 5 rooms on either side of the porch. And that's been pretty good, although the sun starts beating in pretty good by 9 o'clock. So the other thing we've done different is coffee. And by the way, if you look at our Flighthouse Inn on Facebook or Instagram, you can see a lot of these safety things we're talking about coming to life, because we did a lot of social posts on it. but everybody gets an individual coffee pot. So when you come into the dining room where the coffee is, you have 5 Post-it notes with each of the guest names, a sugar thing, a creamer, and a coffee pot or hot water, whatever. So 5 coffee pots, 5 creamers, 5 sugars for 5 guests, and people have liked that too. So the serving, we mask up, we wear gloves. I mean, we always are. We haven't, what we're serving and how we're serving it hasn't changed, but the configuration has been a huge change, and it's been no problem. It's just a little extra work for us, but the guests again have liked that.
Awesome. And then one other thing that we've heard of people, though I haven't seen it, or is, have you guys had any guests or seen any trend of people wanting to have breakfast in their room? And do you allow that, or do you recommend that, or is that an option for smaller?
We were asked once. We never did it. We were asked once, and we said no. And it just adds a level of complication carrying things up the steps and setting it up. It's just, and a lot of the rooms just aren't really configured too well. So it really will depend on the inn, what their situation is going to be.
So in our case, there were 4 rooms that we always brought breakfast to. And that was part of the additional cost of those rooms, was that breakfast would be brought out to you on the tray. So we lucked out with that we were used to doing it. And that, when we check in those guests, actually on the porch, a lot of times they'll choose to come out on the porch. Because it's so nice, but each of those rooms has their own little patio, and they're all a little more self-contained. So that's something we were fortunate that we were just a little ahead of the game on that one. But yeah, it's a little bit of running around.
Yeah, and I would imagine it's easier to do if you have lower occupancy than higher. So
exactly. So yeah, our max is 18 people.
Okay. So the next question is, how do you make the most out of your marketing communications, and how do you make them relevant and effective during this time, or how have you? You mentioned some of the things, I know Shawnee and Willie, earlier on, you mentioned some of the kind of the forms that you send out and everything else, but I'm also talking about, if you've answered that already, also just be thinking about, what kind of marketing communications have you found to be effective when you have marketed out to your guests? And, I'm sure there's different marketing communications from when coronavirus first hit to now. What are your kind of marketing communications now? Have they gone to, hey, we're safe, we're open? Like, how have you transitioned? I know that's a lot of questions, but this is a broad topic. It's a broad question. You can do anything, but I just wanted to let you know. So.
Well, and you kind of got to go with your gut on this. I mean, each person, but in our case, what we did was, sensitized our marketing. We didn't do any promotion during this time because it's like, well, you don't want to bring people in if we regress or something, so we haven't done any promotions this year. Just I'm being concerned about that, but making sure our marketing included our blog, and our website includes a safety component. And, if we post a picture, the mask, wearing the masks and make it a friendly kind of situation. But it is important for everybody to be communicating. A lot of guests want to know that you're still there, you're still operating, your repeat guests are dying to come back. That the last few weekends that we've been full have been mostly repeat guests. So they really want to know that their favorite place is still open.
Okay. Marty,
how about you?
Yeah, so I'd say the whole marketing and communications is probably the single most important strategy and action you can do. I'm on this task force with the city about this small business recovery task force and representing lodging. And what I keep saying to all the other operators in town, it's a mixture of both big chains of Marriott and Hilton, as well as smaller mom and pops that almost run it as a hobby. It's like, what are you going to change, and how are you going to tell your guests? And so we didn't stop communicating at all from mid-March till early May, when we weren't taking any guests. We kept the community, we changed the tone a bit. We talked about baking. We did an Easter egg decorating contest, vote for your favorite, but we wanted to stay relevant. Now that we're open, we're taking pictures of the guest book where somebody said, I felt safe, and we posted that only, and that got a huge amount of likes with comments out of the guest book. We've also just done some of the basic things going on around town, and Pride Week and Blackout Tuesday when that happened, but we really haven't changed our frequency, which is probably 2 or 3 posts a week. But the tone changes. You know, we miss our guests. We're here open. We're staying safe. You don't want to go. I wouldn't say you need to go overboard and post 3 times a day. Or we did 1 email blast to our guests, our past guests. We find that Annapolis is more of a come here, stay a couple days, experience it all, check the box, I've done it. We get some returners more for the Naval Academy. It's not like the beach where people come back every year to the beach. And we're more of an urban location. But I would say your marketing, you have to stay relevant. You have to stay top of mind. You want to keep reinforcing safety. It's almost like safety, safety, safety every time you talk about it, because we get a lot of people calling like, yeah, we never stayed in a bed and breakfast. We think this is going to be a lot safer than a chain hotel. And you said you live in the. We also emphasize that we live on site, so we're looking for out for our health as well as the guest health, and all those things have helped us a lot, because we're still trying to offset the lack of the Naval Academy being open and all the weddings being canceled. So the transients, so to speak, the weekenders are our only component when it used to be one of our 3 components of people coming to town.
Marty, I have a question from the attendees for you, which is what specific social media or marketing sources are you using? Is it Facebook that you were talking about?
Yeah, I see the question. So for quite a while, our best engagement was on Instagram, and because people follow hashtags. But now we pretty much, I post on Instagram and copy it to Facebook, and so the same message goes through both channels. We occasionally do a Facebook and Instagram boost. We do see a peak of likes or a spiking of likes. We can monitor Google Analytics to see if we're getting traffic to the page, and we'll get some traffic, not a ton. It's hard to track in Google Analytics, or we haven't seen much of it. Facebook or Instagram driving conversions, but it gets traffic and awareness. It also just helps us communicate around town. We do blogs. We do blogs probably 1 or 2 a month on all sorts of topics, and a lot of them are ongoing ones of a restaurant listing. We've really pumped up like walks and hikes within 30-minute drive, because it's specifically when dining was really shut down, when it was only pickups. We were kind of trying to figure out what could be offered to people that would still make them want to travel now rather than deferring to later. Newsletters, it's interesting with newsletters. We get all the hype from some of the marketing companies about newsletters are so great. We've seen virtually no bump from newsletters. Again, I think because we're an urban location, and you come once and you've kind of seen what there is in Annapolis, and you go to the next other interesting place. So it's a matter of figuring out what's the right mix for your situation. And for us, for 2.5 years, it's been a little bit of trial and error too, to figure out what works and what doesn't work. We really focus on TripAdvisor and Google for findability.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead, and we do have Cheryl here now. So I was going to also ask Cheryl. So welcome, Cheryl. Thank you for joining us today. And thanks again, Marty, for joining us as well. So the question was just being, I did show them, by the way, your dolphin thing, because that was a way of effectively communicating safety. But I wanted to know what happens to your marketing communication, similar to what has already been discussed, or what additional, how are you marketing, and what's your message currently with your customers, and what has been the result? See if I'll unmute you. You there?
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
I can now. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. A couple of things that I wanted to mention is those who are, whether you're in phase 1 or phase 2, try not to use COVID as an excuse for not providing service to your guests. I know there are regulations limiting what we can do, and we've had to take things out of the rooms and all. But what we're trying to do is find creative ways to put things back in the rooms so that the guest knows we care. For instance, we bought little galvanized pails, little organdy bags, and put face masks in them. First, we wore gloves to package them. And then for the men, we have the black masks, so that since Palm Beach County requires masks under the new ordinance, what happens if the guest arrives and they don't have a mask? Then they can't go to a restaurant. So we've provided little things like that to the guests. And one thing that we have heard from the guests who are traveling is that they don't appreciate it when they go to an inn or a hotel and they feel like their excuse is being made for no service rather than good communication, whether it's by text or by phone. So we think that's really an important thing to keep in mind. And then another thing we've heard from our guests is, and we don't do this, but the COVID fees. I don't know if you're all aware of the fact that a lot of hotels and inns evidently have started tacking on a COVID fee. And at a time like this, you'd be much better to increase your rate a little bit if you need to cover your expenses, because I know everyone's expenses are much greater for cleaning and readying rooms right now, but it would be better to just include that in your rate so that it's transparent to the guest rather than hitting them with that COVID fee. I talked to a few guests this week and they ultimately booked and came to see us, but they were afraid to come. They said one of the reasons they came to us was the fact that we have a COVID statement on our site, and we just completed the select registry, Stay Safe, Stay Select as well. So that's been added to our site. So those things are very, very important to the guests. What the guests really don't want to see, though, is COVID on your website. For instance, saying that you're catering to essential or critical travelers. I've had 3 guests this week tell me, I don't want to stay at an inn that has had critical essential workers. Not that they don't appreciate those workers, but they say those people were in the front line, they were in the hospitals, they were right there with COVID, and we just don't want to be in a place where they were. So unless you're really getting business for critical essential lodgers, you probably should pull that off of your website. It's just a tip from the guests.
We never did it, but I would agree with your sentiment that it's a nice community thing, but it's not necessarily something the guests are going to like.
Right.
Yeah.
We initially did it because that's all that we could market to. We were held to that, standard.
Yeah, and if you're just a reminder to everybody, Cheryl's is in Florida, so she's probably in the thick of it too.
We are.
But so I'll go back and ask, but to go along with what Cheryl said, one of the things that you do have, if since you are all ALP members, I wanted to do I'll show it here. Sorry. But don't worry, stay with me. It's coming back. It's the computer. One of the things that you have is that this is Cheryl provided an example of what she's done with the COVID update with marketing and communicating. And you do have, if you are looking for a nice COVID-19 update, the second page here that you see is text that, correct me if I'm wrong, Cheryl, but you did get that from ALP and you found that that's been effective for your guests.
Yes,
and they've liked
ALP
that.
provided that, and you can customize it. Even with their preparing it, I spent a couple hours making sure that it sounded like us. So
Yeah, we did something similar. We just wrote up our own page long before it had provided to us, and we've been tweaking it on the fly as we learn and adjust.
Yeah.
But we reference it. We don't over provide it. I think there was a short period of time where we linked it off of our homepage, but we've kind of put it to the back now, just saying we have a page on our website under rooms and rates where you can see more of what we do.
Right.
And then
and people are looking at it because they
Yep.
comment when they call.
The other thing that I wanted to, hit on that Marnie kind of talked about earlier too was, he talked about newsletters or everything else. I also wanted to show what ResNexus, what we've seen as a trend throughout. And I don't know, you guys have probably seen it too, but when COVID first started, you got this long love letter, about how we're all in it together and everything's, and it's not bad, but no one reads it. And after about 100 of them, really people are trained to ignore them. Yep. So if you do start marketing again, we found that the best thing to do is to be kind of try to be, I know that there's spam filters, Google's kind of relaxed it a little bit, I've noticed, but basically be to the point, be visual if you can, and don't have as long of a message. Again, at different times, people were asking, hey, we do need your local business. You do need support. We've seen that happen and that be successful. But I look at the CVS pharmacy one, and it's just basically, here's how we've handled Corona. If you want more, if you want the love letter, click learn more, and it goes to the page on my website. But this is how I'm doing it. I provide delivery. I do this, I do that. And that's by far more effective.
Yeah. Our tagline has been along the lines of, when you're ready, we're here for you and we're ready for you. Because not everybody's ready to travel. The whole span of it is, I need to get out of the house now. I'm in Alexandria. Can I be there in 3 hours and check in, all the way to, I want to cancel my reservation in October. I'm like, really, lady? Sir, but and everybody's in a different place, and you kind of got to be sensitive to where everybody's thought processes are at. Oh, and the
oh, sorry, Marty, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, Elisa is the perfect next question then.
Yeah, so I was going to ask how policies have changed. Before that, I did get a mask follow-up question for those of you who provided masks. They just asked, would it be strange to create a custom mask, or do people want that? I would say, because I would add to that question, does any mask do, or have you had mask connoisseurs out there who are like, no, this is not N95, therefore I don't feel safe, even if it's thick enough and it has a filter in it? Or basically, what's your thoughts on custom masks?
We haven't done anything. We have a box of 50, industrial generic masks if people need them, but everybody that's showed up has had them. I think in the Excella corridor in the Northeast here, everybody kind of is pretty tuned into it.
Okay. And we provided the same kind of mask, and then I had made about 50 of the masks as well, and so we just have those out, and people can take them as they will, and then we put 2 in each room upon check-in. So there's some in the common area and some in their rooms. So people just keep forgetting. You forget them. You don't think about it. But I don't. So I don't think I would go out of my way to make it a logoed item for it.
Well, we provide the masks, one for the gentlemen and one for the ladies in the room, along with gloves, and of course, wipes, sanitizing wipes, and hand sanitizer, and that sort of thing. And I think people really appreciate it. Most of the people know that we do that before they get here, because they are reading our COVID page. They are clicking through, and they call and say, we have a couple of questions. And, we're not doing breakfast right now. So going back to what I mentioned earlier about not using COVID as an excuse for no service, 2 of those couples came for anniversaries. So we just slipped a little champagne into their room. So they forgot all about breakfast because they got to sleep in and have a late checkout. So the little goodies like the masks and the gloves and the sanitizing wipes kind of soften the blow of walking into the room and seeing all the COVID signage. The Palm Beach County mask ordinance that we have to display in 3 languages in the room. The social distancing, stay 6 feet apart notice. The one about washing their hands and using hand sanitizers, and the one that educates them about COVID and the symptoms, which, most of us have heard that enough that we're tired of it, but we're required to put all that in our rooms. And And according to what I've heard from a legal standpoint, that's a good thing for you to do. because if you do get a guest who comes to your property and then they turn up with COVID and they call you up and say, hey, we had COVID, you've done your part. And not only that, but you know, when it comes to the contact tracing and all that would ensue after a COVID patient is diagnosed and notifies you, I think that your bases are covered. But
that's interesting. We've left the room. We just made the rooms very clean. We've all the knickknacks and all the stuff's off. The horizontal surfaces are completely cleaned off. The info books are stuck in a drawer now, but they're there. People can find them. We do have signage at the entrance. We have a sign inside the door. We have a hand sanitizer. But that's a lot of stuff we cover both in terms and conditions, in our fine print, in our confirmations, and in our reminders, in our pre-arrival text, and our face-to-face. So we're covering with everybody, so I feel very comfortable. But wow, that sounds, I feel bad for you having to add all that kind of clutter
we're not
annoying. It's to the point now where people that are going to follow it are going to follow it, and people that are going to be resistant are going to be resistant, and it's settled.
So
but it sounds like you're ahead of us. We are not able to greet guests. We are not able to service guest rooms.
What?
So we're not allowed to step into the room. If we have to go in because there's an emergency, you know, toilet needs to be taken care of.
We give guests the choice. Yeah, we give guests the choice. We say, if you're staying more than one night, we'll either do a no touch, a light touch where we dump the trash and wipe the bathroom. We'll do a regular touch, which will make the bed too. And most people are saying you don't need to come in the room.
So,
but see, that's not doable for us because of our executive orders. And I think there are other people, and if you're not familiar with your executive orders, you need to be.
Sure.
Yeah. So
you need to go online and read the whole order. And ours says contactless check-in, little to no contact whatsoever with the guest unless it's done with masks and social distancing.
And what state are you in?
We're in Florida.
Wow.
So
come on into the bar, but be sure that you're really careful when you step inside a hotel. That makes
so guys, I don't mean to cut anybody off, but we are out of time. So thank you again for Sherry, Willie, Cheryl, and Marty. Thank you all for participating, and for all the attendees that have come. I did just want to say, if you do have more questions, you do have the virtual networking lounge. And if you do want to ask more questions about other innkeepers and what they're doing, that should be available to you also as that resource. It's open all day. Also, if you would like, you also have the virtual marketplace, that if you do want resources on other places that maybe have other vendors or other services for you, then you can put you can go to the virtual marketplace. For ResNexus alone, just because I'm hosting, if you do have questions about policies or other things that we do have a set chat room that you can go to on that golden and red button. We also do have, if you do want any more information, we do have presentations at 1:30 today to 3:30. But that chat is open now if you do have questions. Also, so I'd go either to the networking lounge or I'd go to the chat, and we're here to help. And there's also lots of resources provided by ALP. So thanks again for everyone. I don't have control of the meeting, and I don't end the meeting, so I'm going to turn the time back over to Eric.
All right. Thank you very much, Nathan. Thank you, Marty, Cheryl, Willie, and Shawnee. Yeah, I appreciate everybody's time today.